Board. Got a motion to adjourn. Okay. What's on the
So you
agenda?
got your first two transfers?
Got Gene's,
You got your first two transfers?
Oh, what are they? Highway? Oh, highways, yes.
Where's the
Highway.
agenda? Who has the agenda?
Going around.
Here's that.
Pretty good proof for it.
No, it's-
Here you go.
There you go. Gravel quarry and auto supplies.
It was for, yeah, it's for parts, parts for the equipment. Oh, yeah. Transfer. Highway.
Buy some parts, you see what I hear, no?
I didn't send it. Oh, sorry.
Transfer funds from the 2012 highway budget to the following accounts: from main gravel quarry to machinery, auto supplies for the amount of $30,000.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
What is it? What are we doing? Why?
Transferring $30,000 to supplies, auto parts. All auto parts are crazy.
Primarily because of the cost of the parts.
Yeah, they're up about 20% from last year.
Transferring it to the
Two auto costs.
We're transferring from gravel
ground.
quarry
Okay, gotcha, man.
to auto supplies.
Do we know whether the need for this is reflected in the new budget? Or is this a one-shot deal that, I mean, it's insignificant?
I didn't look at the new budget, but it's something that Jay was aware of, so I'm going to assume that he reflected that in the new budget.
He does a good job, thanks.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Is that the only transfer?
No.
Public health preparedness.
Murray's got one more, terrorism.
You got the bioterrorism?
The bioterrorism is the budget amendment, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's budget amendment for this year's bioterrorism grant.
It's 53,500, is that the one?
Yes. I believe in the letter he calls it preparedness, but it's.
Public health preparedness,
Yes,
right.
it's what's been traditionally called the bioterrorism grant.
You want a federal grant? That's a federal?
It's, starts federal, but I think it goes through the state and then,
Need a motion? Second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, first on the budget discussions is emergency services. I see Mr. Vanderwalker here. Jim, lead the way. Bob?
One of the only issues I think that Bob and I and Bernie been talking about, Pat, we think we're getting robbed on the 911.
35 cents or,
Yeah.
whatever it is
Yeah,
now.
it's-
The cell phone thing?
Every little 4-year-old's got a cell phone, and for that not to be going up, we've contacted NICEAG, I've contacted NICEAG, Bob and I were looking at some articles today that are going on across the state. It really is a sham. Number one, that the state steals the $1.20 you guys pay on your cell phones, shares a minor amount with us, but that needs to be looked into. And then the second thing, I think locally, again, because of some of the phones and where they're sold, we don't think we're getting our share. I think it's substantial, I don't think it's minor.
Could it
And it
be,
might be another time for us to go to Senator Seward, to go to the state then.
yeah, but
and
could
do
it
an
be people abandoning landlines?
There's a little bit of that, absolutely.
You know, that's gonna knock it down too.
I know many people who've done that, young people especially.
I think you're gonna see a lot more of that over the next 5 years.
Right now,
Well, we almost know that.
our breakdown of calls is about 50/50 cell phone, landline, and that changes every year. The cell
Right.
phone comes up every year.
Yeah, yeah.
And I still believe them we're getting a
Oh, yeah,
substantial amount of money.
it was much more definite when it was on the landline, and much more vague, the legislation when it went on the cell phones, as to where the money was going, how it was gonna be distributed.
There's one initiative that the state coordinators and some state officials are trying to get through legislation is that these prepaid cell phone cards that you buy for cell phones, that there be a surcharge attached. to those cards, which would bring in revenue. Now, hopefully it will come to the counties and not go to the state, but that's something that the counties are trying to push through, because that's becoming more popular as the regular, like Verizon accounts, AT&T accounts get more expensive and have more regulations attached to them from the companies. People are going to prepaid and, pay-as-you-go type things.
And I remember back thinking that the 35 cents was gonna cover the whole cost of the program. How naive we were in the beginning.
I think it did for the first 2 years.
We're definitely, and I hate to use the word ripped off, but I think we're getting ripped off, just because of the system.
How do they claim they account for it? How do they even assert how they maintain the formula?
They've been resistant for any pressure on any of the cellular companies to do anything. I mean, there's so much power there.
So then what drives the formula? Where does the data come from?
There really isn't. We have no way to track how many cell phones we have in the county, what companies have them. And there's so many fly-by-night companies that, we get checks from companies that for $1.20 a month.
Oh, the companies are paying us. It doesn't go through the state and then come back to us.
The companies, yes, the companies pay us directly.
Oh,
And then there's another $1.20 that goes directly to the state. The 35 comes here, the $1.20 goes to the state.
There's 2 issues.
oh.
I think we're getting robbed on both of them.
If you put it down there, how is that money being accounted to Otsego County that area?
It's supposed to, when you get your cell phone and give them your address, your billing address is still, the surcharge is supposed to go to the county where you live. But that doesn't always happen.
I get 2 letters on my desk home from people in Utica addresses that have this problem. They see their bill come in and they see the address from their surcharge. We've had this argument.
And the state's argument is that it slashes back and forth enough with a wash, right?
Didn't they say at the inter-county meeting, though, if we use those last 4 digits on our address, they're very important, that they direct the money to the area it's supposed to go to? A lot of people don't use those last 4 digits.
I even know.
It doesn't mean the vendor. It doesn't designate the county.
What's that?
It doesn't designate the county. We learned that during the sales tax.
It designates the area, though.
But
Like
in Jimmy's area,
It designates.
a lot of those, designate Utica, even though they live in Skyler. Same with West
I
Frankfurt.
don't know.
No, I'm positive.
Like
Remember,
in Dallas,
we had the post office in here. They said they will not use that to designate a county. That designates an area.
Those 4 numbers actually mean what side of the street you're on, and I don't know what the other one is,
Well, that's-
but it's a side of the street and
No.
a zone that you're.
Take for instance Dowsville, where it's divided by the county line. The people that are in Herkimer County is 2010, those 4 numbers. The people who live in Fulton County is another number, which tells whoever's divvying up the money, that they live in Fulton County.
No,
We were told that in Old Forge, when that guy
Those 4
spoke.
numbers are different for each address.
Frankfurt is 3627 for
Or
everybody. Frankfurt is 3627 for everybody.
Is it for you, John, too, and Frank, and you, over where you are, 326?
We had that, I looked that up a long time ago with the automobile deal. They got everything screwed up.
They fix it to a point where if you tell the vendor, go to tax and finance and tell them to punch in your address, it'll tell you what county you're in. But the vendor doesn't always do it. The Sears, the Macy's, the Verizons of the world don't do that because it goes through corporate. The local guy might do that. And you have proof, you can go to them and say, here, this is where I live, and okay, they'll grant you that sales tax. But the big guys, they don't care, it's run through their computer system and.
Well, I think if you put those last 4 numbers on there, it'll help.
I agree.
I mean, we could try it, Dutch.
How much?
I think we should bring in,
How much does that affect us?
We get the shaft.
Bring in our mailman.
let's bring in the state representatives, including Hugh Farley now, is going to be representing, I don't know if he has any competition, but we're going to do it now, so he's still in there, he's going to be representing the northern part of the county. So, Jim, you can make some phone calls, try to get them in.
Because Pat, I mean, Dennis had a good point there with the landlines, but think about the landlines. I mean, how many kids have phones? I mean, the landline's only one house. There's 3 kids in that house, each one of those kids got a phone.
My kid got married, she's not having a house phone.
Right, no,
son
that's
gave
what I'm
up
saying.
his
I mean,
house
so
phone.
landlines, you can't really say that because of the decrease of landlines, because every household only had one landline. They're getting charged 1 fee, whereas you got 5 phones in one household. I mean, it doesn't add up. I don't
You
think
see,
it
the
works.
kids that are born now aren't even gonna know what a
A landline is, right, exactly.
Okay, what else, Jim?
And I remember what a party line was.
Bernie and Bob sent out the
I told my kids that,
bills
like,
to,
what?
They're too young for that.
both public health and DSS, so Vern, we should be getting those revenue bills, correct? Thank you for doing that.
And that yearly, that's the thing that slips my mind, and Jim reminds me all the time.
But we're-
Back Terry used to take care of that for me when he was here, and it just slips my mind now that I take care of
May have
it.
Jerry.
Will that diminish
You
because
know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
No, still paying.
Okay.
Public health still has that.
At least I'm not saying not.
Is it as much? No, but we still.
They are.
We still have the coverage.
They probably keep taking it, so we bitch.
As far as our other revenue, for the 3021 account, everything remains pretty much the same. The 911 wireless that we get, which is our cut of the $1.20 that they get off the cell phones, is going to be down a little bit. What they're projecting anyways. The inlet contract goes up a hair, and the Long Lake stays about the same.
any problems associated with those contracts?
No, they actually believe we're providing them with a great service. So.
The townships pay it or the county pays it?
The townships.
Okay.
The local wireless revenue looks like, if you look at the 2011, looks really, really good, but I looked back, that's actually 2 years, we didn't get any at all the year before.
But that's what,
The
3080.
3089D.
I can check that, but
We got it twice.
we got it twice in 1 year.
Yeah, and we didn't get any at all the year before.
There was 1 year where they weren't gonna give it. That's that 1 year where everything was up in the air, and I think we made up for it.
You got double in 2011, right?
We got double.
That's what you're showing?
Yes.
In fact, we just, about a month or so ago, put in for another round, so that should be coming.
Anything else? National Grid, everything going better with them?
As far as the tower, it's, I think after the meeting we had with the town supervisor and your brother, I think we.
The brother, is that a religious term or a familial?
With the police chief, I
Oh.
should say. I think we ironed out a lot of things that, what they were telling him and telling us were totally different. And they accused us of moving antennas, which we never moved. Claimed they had pictures, which they didn't have. It's just the way, I hate to say it, but it's the way these 3 guys operate.
Can you
From
explain to the
National
rest of
Grid.
us what you're talking about?
Huh?
Can you explain to the rest of
Oh,
us what you're
it's
talking about?
got to do with the tower that we have space on McCully Mountain, which that belongs to National Grid. We had problems when we did the microwave. And now we were experiencing problems again a few months ago. And just now, I feel a little bit better that they did the same thing to the Poland Fire Department. Poland Fire Department put up a new tower. And National Grid wanted space on that tower, so they agreed to work out something, and Poland Fire Department had their attorney write up an agreement, and for a long term, and National Grid came back and said they wanted a lifetime agreement with no cancellation possibilities. They wanted the top of the tower, they wanted this, wanted that. If there was any interference that they caused, it wasn't their problem. And there was a phone conversation between the guy from National Grid and the Poland Fire Department. He thought he was talking to one guy, but they actually had him on speaker when he proceeded to call people in the area a bunch of hillbillies. So that deal went right down the tubes, and they're not even going to talk to National Grid. So, but that's just the way they operate.
Wow.
Bruce is right.
That's your Bruce.
All right, well, that's good. We do have a question.
Hang on, I got a quick. Who are you dealing with National Grid? Who's calling who a hillbilly?
It's one of their technicians that is in charge of stuff in this area. It's a level thing. The technician operates this area, then there's an engineer out in Syracuse that is in charge of the engineering for everything. And then the big guy is the properties. He's in charge of leasing and space on towers and everything to do with the towers. This is all communications, got nothing to do with the great guys that work for National Grid and go out and fix the lines and,
This is like corporate stuff.
yeah, this is corporate stuff.
We've seen a tremendous difference since the IDA in the village of Frankfurt, we've done it.
Really?
It's just anecdotal, it's not, I can't.
So,
But I just know, John, the calls back to us and the calls to us and they're longer and longer and longer. And it mostly was to do with Battleville a lot, the last year and a half with your stuff.
and just,
And finally, we had a meeting up there in Square
Where-
Village, but it's still,
Up in the village of Frankfurt?
no, well, we had it up in, what the hell was that?
New Hartford.
New Hartford.
New Hartford. Thanks.
And just where we're at now is after the meeting with the town supervisor, and I have to apologize because he's newer, his name escapes me.
Ted, really?
Yeah, very sharp guy. Bob Moore, great guy, but he wasn't willing to, engage with National Grid as much as this guy is. And he said if the county is willing to do a project on the mountain with the town, with a separate tower or separate site, after they were done, they would tell National Grid to take the tower and,
Yeah, well, I had talked to him, and I had talked to you guys in regards to taking it by eminent domain if they weren't going to,
Mhm.
help us out because they were just being belligerent, so. I mean, we have the power under public safety to be able to do things. So, I think when that came up, and didn't you mention that to him?
Yeah.
I
That
think
changed
things
their
got
tune a little
better.
bit, yeah.
But it was really ridiculous up there. I mean, obviously, when you're looking for ambulances to arrive on time to certain places and calls couldn't go out, and this was before microwave too, but even after that, you gotta try to protect your citizens, so.
Well, they ordered us to move our antennas down. Our antennas are already the lowest antennas on the tower. We can't move them down any lower to be on the ground. And they ordered us to move them down 5 feet because AT&T, they didn't tell us that was the reason. They said we moved them, which we didn't. AT&T has leased more space on the tower from them, so.
So how is it resolved now? How did it get resolved up there?
I think right now, it's just resolved that we're leaving each other alone, basically.
Sometimes that works. Sometimes that works.
Yeah, well, and we are working together. I mean, we went up and found an issue with the generator, and we had conversations with them, and they're working on it, so.
Is that fixed?
Last I heard, they were gonna try to get someone local to take care of the problem, and I haven't heard back.
Because when the storm hit, the radios went out.
Yeah, well, our batteries went dead, and the radios went out. We're supposed to be on generator power there, so.
How far is that?
Okay, anything else?
Not far.
Jim, anything else? I mean, it sort of is what it is.
If there's not, Bob does a very good job of trying not to crowd into the post.
We had, at some time ago, we had a question, there was a conversation about JPR and what, JPR, JRB, whatever, JPJ. And then there was like an inventory was being conducted on the radios that were out with the various agencies that we cover the maintenance on. Did that ever come to closure where we finally got a final inventory and we know what we're paying for?
We did. I went out and did an inventory myself.
Did you find everything?
And things had changed so much over the years. But right now, going through this narrow banding upgrade, in fact, I just have some of our ID tags that we're going to affix to the new stuff. We're replacing right now about 120 radios to meet the federal guidelines. And after that is done, then we'll have an excellent inventory. In fact, I went up there, I sat down with them. They're setting up spreadsheets that we can trade back and forth.
With a JPJ.
Yes.
We pay them though, based on the number of units, don't we? What's our contract?
Well, we have, I would say yes and no. because it hasn't changed in,
But it should change,
since the
right?
eighties. It should, actually, it should have gone way up from what it is. But I would imagine after this is done, yes, we're gonna see a change.
Uh,
Well, depending on how many radios are in the
Well,
system.
but how's that factored in your budget?
I haven't changed the budget right now because I don't know where we'll be at, or if they'll change it, you know.
And we'll know that when?
Probably sometime after the first year, when this is all done.
Thank you.
Bob Boyer here. Maybe you can answer a question for me that I've had from the ambulance corps and fire departments and everything. How are the ambulance corps and the fire departments going to come up with the money to make this change to this new radio, the band system? Where's that money going to come from?
The fire departments, I mean, we're helping them out with mobile
You're helping
radios.
those, but what about the ambulance corps and stuff? How are they going to get onto that?
There's really, the hard thing is, and we ran into this with our using grant money, is we have to, there's a Bible from the state
Yeah,
about that thick that is what we have to meet to use grant money. And unfortunately, the radios that we are buying right now are close to $1,500 a piece.
Yeah.
The ones we need are about $500 a piece. But because we're using grant money, we have to use what they want. And it's supposed to be this plan so we can someday have a statewide system. Well, everybody's still buying different things, so it doesn't make sense.
So if the
The only thing I can
grants,
say is, you know, everybody's known about this we've been talking about this for 5 years, you know, or more.
Yeah.
And, you know,
But it's another case of mandating something and not
Absolutely,
giving
yes.
anybody any money to do it with. Fred and I attended meetings and things with our ambulance corps and things up there to try to work out something, but so far, we haven't been able to get anything back from Stewart or Butler or anybody. Nobody seems to care.
well, and they'll tell you the same thing, it's a federal mandate, not their mandate.
but when they buy the radio, they can buy a $500 radio if they're paying themselves,
Yes.
but if they're trying to get it through a grant, it's gotta be a $1,500 radio.
Right.
And by the time they do a national whatever, they're gonna be obsolete anyway,
Very well.
or broken.
Is there just one
company that sells that radio?
Pardon me?
The $1,500 radio, is that a specific radio?
No, you can get them from any company.
Yeah.
In the past, we've had, I guess, morale problems with overtime or full-time. Is that still going on? How are we doing with overtime?
I was, not morale problem, just.
No, I shouldn't say morale, but
Yeah, well, that's good.
I want to know what that's.
I'd like to clarify, we just have issues regarding full-time people versus part-time.
full-time versus,
I can't hear.
I was gonna,
Hey, guys, gals,
full-time versus part-time. I'm
just
sorry.
quickly.
we asked the same question in 2
But
seconds.
it leads to.
It's been a quick year, or a rough year as far as overtime. We've used more overtime this year than we have in previous years. And the reason being, the less availability of part-time workers. I've been having a hard time filling part-time slots for different reasons, because a lot of the part-time people have now got full-time jobs, so their availability is down. And also even hiring part-time people, the last 4 people I talked to that are on the list all have full-time jobs. They want the job, but their availability is just on weekends. So that limits me during the week, but each shift that we run, we need a part-time person.
Jim, this is very similar, we're having the same problem.
Sure, it's a problem.
If you watch,
Is this a competitive position?
you're seeing the
An
difference.
examination
between-
they have to take?
Yeah. So, you know, the good thing is I can transfer money from my part-time budget, because I haven't used it much, into the overtime, and it's a wash, more or less.
But does that burn out the full-time people, you know, especially
Well,
during holidays? I mean, we're
You know
busy
what,
now.
it depends what day it is and what time of year, I get the same thing. Aren't we gonna hire more full-time people, we're working too much? And then when you hire them, you get, no, we don't have any overtime, because they're all, you know, so it's a wash, you know.
And what were you saying about,
Well, Chris is having the same problem when we went through his budget, or when we go through his budget, I'm sorry, we went through it this week again. You're seeing a very difficult time for us to find part-timers. We have part-timers, but their availability is very difficult. And what's happening, you're seeing the overtime go up.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I got people that apply that he doesn't, it doesn't call it, I mean.
Well, you can talk.
Can we do on this though, Pat? I'm curious on
You know,
this.
the
Well, I'm
problem
just
is,
saying, if I can finish my
Hang on a
statement.
second, he's stating.
Awful lot of drug problems and felony arrests with people who are applying.
With people who are applying?
And we can't share, we can't call you back and say,
Right.
geez, we didn't hire, Mary Smith because, she's got a felony charge with ABC.
It is a competitive position as far as the 911 though? They have to be on the list? Because I thought when you hire part-timers, if they're under so many hours, you're not doing lists. I thought they
no,
didn't.
we do.
Do you have to do a list? too?
Civil service for everybody.
I thought when we hire part-time clerical, you're not using a list, are you? Or do you?
Can you make a provisional appointment without there being on the list?
If there's no availability of the list, yes.
Well, your list is current,
Yes.
and you've got enough names that you...
The problem is you can't, I've been talking to Steve about this, it's hard to disqualify somebody that says they want the job, just because they can't work certain days.
Well, I mean,
Either you want the job or you don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're the boss. You either want to work for us or you're not going to work.
Yeah.
but, Pat, so I just want to be clear on this because I had thought, Jim
Well,
Wallace.
let's get Steve.
And then, so, because then if it has to be competitive from an examination, when's the last time you gave an exam?
It's been about a year and a half.
Oh, is it
But we
really?
still have like probably 20 names on a list. But the problem is getting down that list of people that will really work is the difficult part. Just qualifying people. is difficult.
Well, my career, if you were on a list and they asked you to come in to take the job and you said no, guess what? You got off the list.
Oh, no, these people will take the job, but their availability,
But they're not accepting your job, so they should come off the list. That's the way civil services historically has worked in my 37-year career.
We need them down in,
At least if you say I'm temporarily unavailable, then you come off temporarily.
Yeah, you would think we could,
Do we need Bob still here?
well, I can tell you what I've done to help alleviate the last few days, because we've had other issues. I just recently, within the last 2 weeks, I had one of my full-time people resign. He's gonna stay on part-time to help us, but he went to Mid-York Library System, that's what he went to college for, that's what he wanted to do. Also, we had one of our women that we believe she may have had a mini stroke at work, so she's out now. We don't know how long she's gonna be out.
be careful with what you say, Bob.
Because the camera's on.
Yeah, well, she knows.
No, I'm not being critical.
Yeah, I'm not gonna use names or anything,
No,
but,
I just don't say too much.
yeah. So what I've done to alleviate, the problem is I've called some of our former part-time people that have resigned or left for different reasons. 2 of them have agreed to come back, at least on a temporary basis, to help us alleviate the problem, still in the slots.
What's the training curve? If someone came in that took the test but didn't have experience, how long do you have to take the training?
6 to 8 months.
Really, that long? Is there a prescribed program? Are they hands-on duty while they're doing it?
We do a prescribed program, then we put them with another dispatcher.
So 6 months before you even can put them on the phone by themselves?
We have a question, Steve.
Yep. Part-timer, Steve, let's start with Bob's department. They come off the list?
Yes.
Do they have to come off the list?
Part-time?
Well, or transfer.
Now, how about a clerical person that goes to work at DSS?
Competitive, part-time clerk.
Part-time clerk is not competitive.
But so who says that this a part-time, what are we calling your people? What are they?
Telecommunicators.
Who says that's competitive? Do you make that determination?
Well, anytime a position's created, it's born competitive unless we get the state to approve it out of the competitive class.
So a clerk, part-time clerk, we got him to approve it as non-competitive. So is there an exercise we could go through to make his part-time people non-competitive?
We could try. Yeah. We can petition the state and ask for it. Now, I will say, the Civil Service Commission at the state level, the current flavor is to not allow positions out of the competitive class. Doesn't mean we can't get it. If we can show we're having recruiting problems,
We are, right?
yeah. That's one justification. If we can show, look, we don't get a lot of people to take our tests, we don't get a lot of people that are interested in these jobs. You know, if we can justify it.
I was just explaining that, some of the people that we have now have been reluctant to appoint them because of their availability, even though they do want the job.
Okay, well, you and Steve can work that one out, I think. Yeah. We need to go to state board.
Yeah, I usually do a rules, it's called a rules resolution, and we usually do one every year, every other year, but we can do it at any time.
Do you have to do
It's a
it,
long process.
once it's approved, do you have to come back again, or once you get it, you got it?
Once it's out, it's out, unless we want to change the procedure.
Now, Steve, can you make a delineation between full-timers and part-timers?
Yes, and we would. I don't think they would allow full-timers out.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Is that true in the deputies? You mentioned the deputies at the same time? You said,
Well,
are the deputies?
I know Chris is having a lot of trouble with part-timers.
Is that competitive?
Accountability and
Right, part-time police officers are in the, we've got in the non-competitive class, many, many, many years ago, that was allowed.
They are not competitive.
Yeah, but deputy sheriffs, and we can add, I'd be very, very surprised on police officers if they allow them
No.
now. They did years ago, but that was.
Just a quick question, because we don't hire full-time people, we bring our part-time people into full-time when a position opens.
Take an exam.
Now, that would be a case where that couldn't happen anymore.
Correct.
Okay.
But they could take the exam when it's beyond the full-time list.
But I
but it
spoke
could
with,
cause a problem.
It could be the best interview process in the world.
when I spoke with Chris, I know, with the part-timers, it's about the ones that we can't get them here, about the ones that are in Macon County. I could have sworn the answer was he had an application.
He had to issue giving me.
He had in-county application.
Pat?
Okay, anything else?
I just want to understand the training component though. Now, if we bring someone in part-time, and I'm a full-time employee, and I'm going to go to work, I'm going to want to be your part-time clerk, you've got to put me, I remember hearing the sheriff talk about the kind of training he has to give. Would my training be a Monday through Friday, Bob? A training that, in order for me to qualify to help, to be a part-timer, I'd have to come in full-time to be trained? If I've got a job, how do you
We
do that?
require the first 2 weeks that you come in
Full-time.
on days.
Okay.
Then after that, it's, we have some,
But our training is full-time days. There's no way around that. So if I have a full-time job, I gotta take 2 weeks off
well,
from
for
work.
part-time people, we don't require a part-time person coming full-time. We'll tell them, 3 days a week, you need to be here between these hours.
And do we only do training on days?
We start out on days. Then we move to the evening shift and then the overnight shift because they're going to have to work them all. They need to know what every shift is about.
And it's 6 to 8 months of training.
The last 3 people that we put on, actually the last 5 people we put on, took between 6 and 8 months before we could put them by themselves. Now, these are people that are coming cold with no public safety experience. If we bring in people, which I'd love to do, with public safety experience, they have the terminology, they know the system that works in the field. You got to realize dispatchers need to know how 9 police departments, 26 fire departments, 8 ambulance corps, they all operate.
I don't want the job,
You know,
okay, I couldn't do it, I'm
all
not
the
good at
procedure
crazy.
policies and everything, so it does take, and they have to be experts on geography, in the county.
But there's a curriculum
Yeah.
that you have.
Yeah, we send them out with state police to ride, we send them out with fire, EMS.
Okay.
We take them around, show them, we take them up on web, show them the geography, and, it's a long process.
And the last time we gave an exam was 1.5 years, and how
About a
long
year,
before that?
This are good for up to 4 years,
Yeah.
but obviously if it gets depleted or we get it down where there's very few candidates left, we'll hold the exam.
I just wonder with the unemployment being what it is.
I don't know about.
Yeah, we have a lot of people on
Bob-
there.
Why do they have to train on days if I'm hiring someone that has a full-time position Monday through Friday, but would do 3 nights a week for us or weekends? Why would we have to train them on days?
Because the first few weeks are mostly policy procedures, which, we do.
But you could do that on shift, couldn't you?
Well,
I'm just saying, if we could run it,
Put more money through hours.
but
because
you
it
gotta
does take a lot of
realize,
those people off the table.
we're doing this individually for each person. It's not like we're bringing a group of people, you're doing them all at once.
Right, but if I'm gonna take a part-time job to help you out, my regular job is Monday through Friday, I'm not gonna use up my vacation time for the entire year to come train with you.
It's not the entire year.
No, I'm saying my vacation time, I only get 2 weeks a year vacation, or a year, or a week, I'm gonna take my
That's the
5
choices
days off.
that people make.
Yeah.
I'm not the one, I'm saying if I'm having a problem, maybe we need to look at that, that's all I'm saying, maybe we need to look at the way we're doing it, we'll open the pool up to more people, that's all I'm saying.
Creativity.
Flex time. You
Right
don't
now-
have, if one of your employees will, I mean, I know you don't.
All I can say, the only thing I can say right now is, right now, my part-time people that are most beneficial to me and my best employees are part-time people that don't have a full-time job.
Have you had to go to mandatory overtime?
We have.
Have you had to mandate?
We have ordered people in.
It's not a huge problem.
No, it's
Okay.
very seldom. We order someone and they work. We fill them one way or the other. I have two criminals who's our main supervisor. She'll come in and fill 4 hours here, 4 hours there.
So you're paying overtime at an increased rate?
No, she's salary.
Oh,
So.
flex? Is that what you just mumbled?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks again. The DA's out there, can you send them?
Yeah, he is hurt.
There you go.
This one?
Before Bob leaves, I just wanted to mention, there was one area where I thought that he overspends just, has a little bit of money that maybe we could cut a little bit, and that's in his overall telephone, that maybe we could cut 2,000 or 3,000. I mentioned that before we talked about that. If that's.
Absolutely.
Which one? Where are you doing it?
That's a 911 telephone balance.
Thank you. It's actually about 5 accounts and 911. I'll start with 4.
And you're gonna cut
You have about
it?
8,000. You have about 8,000 over. You know, it varies.
Good morning. Where would you like them?
I can't, like, do things because I can't.
Shouldn't give me change. No, I'll go sit next to Bernie.
Oh, geez.
Bernie can't be trusted, so that's.
They have enough charges having some people.
Okay, Jim and Jeff, I'm sure you've gone over this, so where would you like to start, Mr. Wells?
Your revenue is very consistent. Really, the whole budget basically is very consistent. Small change in insurance that Bernie will make, just because we looked back to last year. About the only questions that I had was the equipment.
Did you move off of revenue already?
Yes.
Are you gonna go back?
Whatever you want to do.
No, I'll let
Said
you
they were
finish. and
very,
then-
everything was very
Whatever
consistent.
you really
I just
can
have a
do.
question.
Go ahead.
The stop BWI money, is that consistent with what Mike told us the other day? Is that-
Yes, that's been cut. As you notice, it's been cut. 2,700.
And then I had a conversation after reading that article in the OD on the, what do you call it? I don't hesitate to call it drug money, but the money that you get from arrests, and is that in that fines and forfeitures?
What article did you read? What's the
About how much
context
money
of it?
they get up in Oneida County and that they, how they were dispensing it. There were questions the legislature were asking how they use the money or something like that, and I
That's
was
usually
reading.
a separate account that,
That's what I'm asking, is this separate and distinct from here, is this where it goes?
No, it's not that, it's not under fines and forfeiture.
Well, how does fines and forfeiture get then? What is that money?
Fines and forfeiture are fine money that comes back to the county as a result of fines in county court, and the state allocates a certain percentage back to the county. Forfeiture is obviously what it is forfeiture of assets by criminal defendants who are convicted of crimes.
So when we, I don't know, it might have been with Crandall. So like when we had, I remember the conversation about a car. A car that somebody did whatever they did to it, you couldn't even license it for the road. And
Yeah.
I think actually you couldn't even sell it. But if I did have a car
Mhm.
that I was doing drugs and you took my car, where does that go? Does it go in here or it goes someplace else?
It can if it's ultimately sold. Many of the cars that we've been seizing on the road, especially on the thruway, have hidden tracks in them. They're called compartments, and they can never go back to the highway. So we couldn't even sell those. Generally, what we do with those is turn those over to the state police for training exercises and training purposes.
If-
We can't even license them and drive them ourselves.
If I had one that you could,
Mhm.
or then it would go, I would find it here or would it be someplace else?
Yeah, if it's ultimately sold, once we seize it, and then if it goes and is sold, or we sometimes license them and use them. as part of our fleet. We've done that.
If I had $5,000 under my seat with my drugs in the trunk, where's that money go? Here?
Convicted of a felony,
Yeah.
and we can seize that money, yes, that money.
It would show up in
would
this account, not in a separate account. I thought Pat just said it's in a separate fund.
Wasn't there a separate account for things that you got through drugs and things of that nature?
Yeah, we have a separate prosecutor's fund also.
Where's that money come from? How's that?
That money comes from other cases, also criminal convictions, et cetera. If, for example, we work in conjunction with a federal agency on a case, then the feds will kick back a certain percentage of what they seize and allocate back to us.
But that
Those
doesn't
funds
go
are-
here.
Those are in restricted accounts and restricted use.
Does it get restricted because the feds are giving it to us? and
It's
we didn't get it?
restricted because that's the account, that's the nature of where it goes, and it's called a restricted funds account, and there's a very limited purposes for that money.
But if I had the 5,000 in my trunk and I was arrested and you took it, it doesn't go to the restricted, it goes here?
It can go
Am I
on,
understand?
it can go into the forfeited, well, no, go into the restricted account. I'm sorry, did I mislead? It goes into the restricted funds account.
So then again, I'm driving the car
Mhm.
and I got $5,000 in the trunk. You convict me.
Mhm.
You got the 5,000. Is there latitude where that money goes?
It goes into the restricted funds
Restricted
account.
account. So this money forfeits your criminal proceedings, and I'm looking at the 2626 account.
Yes.
There's no money there. At one point, I see in 2009, we had 38,000 and nothing since.
Yeah, I don't know where, I think that
That money now is appropriated from the reserve instead of coming from the budget. So it.
From the reserve,
There's
the
an
restricted
expense-
account?
There's a $38,000 expense that's put in the budget, but the $38,000 in revenue is appropriated from reserve.
Reserve or restricted?
It's a reserve of the restricted funds.
We don't review that here today.
No, that's usually done when we go through the end of the budget with where we're taking fund balance out of and the other money would be taken out of probation.
So as we're looking at how this money here, how we're gonna fund the DA's office, that money does not come into this equation at all? Would you walk away?
What's the balance in that trust account?
in our restricted funds, $133,000.
How has it grown? I mean, has it grown recently?
I don't have those numbers with me, that's not part of the budget, that's not part of the budget
We're here to
process.
talk about the budget.
Well, we're spending money from the DA's office, I'm just curious.
But if we don't have control
can't
of that, it's
use
not
that.
part of our budget, we shouldn't really be
That's
discussing
my
it.
point, when we say we can't use it, I know from reading that article, there was conversation in the United County Legislature about, they did have, I just want to clarify what oversight we have and what information we have from it.
My understanding is you have no oversight over that restricted funds account. The district attorney's office, the district attorney has full control over that money. Now, I think it has been a tradition in this county that when we want to spend it, for example, if we want to buy a vehicle with it or something, we come to the legislature and let you know that, but that's more as a...
Or we've asked you to do that.
Right, and, and that's part of the partnership and working together, but in reality, you don't have any oversight.
And our lack of oversight is vested in some law or how do we not have a role in it? Who says we don't? Not tradition, but who says we don't have any oversight in it?
It's a restricted funds account of the district attorney's office. I think state law controls that, by operational law.
So who oversees how it is used and the appropriateness of how it's used? Does it have to be bid when you're spending it? That kind of, I'm just curious where the control lies in that. Is it solely vested just in the DA's office?
Yes.
And we don't know anything about how you spend it and we're not supposed to know?
Well, no, you do know how we spend it because we, as a courtesy, we tell you how we spend it, but you don't have an obligation to do that.
So.
And it's not part of our budget. That's not a budget line item.
Well, it
Yeah,
operates your,
It
Well-
actually is part of your budget, but the money doesn't come from
Right.
tax levy.
but it's in there.
Yes.
So I guess I'm understanding why we don't understand what's going on with it and why we don't know if it's in the budget.
Historically, from what I understand, if the district attorney was involved with police agencies trying to do undercover work or sensitive work, he has access to funds to facilitate that kind of activity
Well, I'm not.
on behalf of the
We can actually
taxpayers.
buy them equipment and things like that, and there's purposes for it.
So
subsidize law enforcement.
I just want to understand that there's some statute that prohibits us, other than your courtesy of letting us know, there's a statute that prohibits us from understanding, I mean, I think you said, would you
There's
say
not a statute that
133?
prohibits anything, there's a statute that enables him to use that money.
I understand that, but I said what prohibits us from having oversight over it, and there's a statute that vests it completely with the DA, I think is what you said.
No, there's nothing that prohibits you, it's what authorizes us, there's an authority given, it's just not given to you, it's not a prohibition on you, it's just you're not vested with the authority.
So the accounting of the money, how much is coming in, any of that, we don't necessarily, I mean, I asked you.
No, I mean, it is, money comes into the treasurer, and the treasurer puts it in a reserve fund, so they're the accounting.
Do we see it growing? I guess that's about line. Will we see it growing to have more, we heard about radios and EMS, not that that would be you, but we know that the sheriff's department trying to do what they're doing with drug task force. Any idea on even a level of how you see, I mean, if it was 133,000 now, what was it a year ago? I think we bought the car a couple of years ago.
Bernie can get that. Let's go.
Well,
through it.
how about growing it, Pat?
Bernie can get that. We'll figure it
How
all
does
out.
Bernie know how it's gonna grow? The DA.
Well, how do they know how it's gonna grow? They don't know who they're gonna arrest tomorrow.
Do they have a sense that there's, I mean, what did we take in last year?
Well, Bernie will get
I
that.
can get that.
I mean, I can't anticipate future crime.
Do you anticipate using any of the money this
It's
year?
pretty good. Do I anticipate using it? I probably do anticipate using some of it. I have not used, to my knowledge, any of it this year. I can't say that for certain, to purchase anything this year, because as an acting district attorney, I certainly could have spent it all, but I don't think that that would have been the proper thing to do.
I respect that.
Okay, Jim Wallace.
Yeah, I think one of the things I wanted to bring to everybody's attention, and this had nothing to do with the district attorney's office. We've had a grant with the YWCA for years.
Yeah.
They've chosen to go in another direction as far as contracting with the county for an employee. So I just want to make sure everybody up here understands that that's gone away. That was a decision that was made at the YWCA's level.
It's actually on the bottom of page one.
2268. So you guys, if you hear anything out there, it has nothing to do with us, it was a decision. And again, they're trying to survive financially, and it's a grant that they get, and they're.
And we lost that position.
Right, absolutely. But, so I want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
Was it effective when you had it? in the house?
Yes.
Shame.
So now I've asked my investigator to assume those roles and those duties and added responsibilities.
But you won't get reimbursed for it.
No.
Did they lose the grant? Is that why they stopped it, or they're
No.
not applying for the, or they get the grant to divert it?
They're trying to survive, as I mentioned earlier,
Uh-huh.
trying to survive within their department. They're making the tough decisions that we're making here.
And our deal has always been, it's fully grant funded, so if the grant funds dry up, then we lose the position and I get to do it, but that was the understanding, that was the agreement.
Important work.
Next, Jim.
Well, the only thing out of the ordinary is, would be the equipment, and maybe Jeff or Phyllis could speak to that.
And on page 3?
Page 3.
What we're asking for here in equipment, and you can see going back, a couple of years, it's been flatlined at zero. We haven't had a budget line for equipment. Approximately $2,650 of that is to install security on the front entrance of the district attorney's office and the rear entrance, which would allow swiping of cards to get in and out. Right now, the front door remains locked on a buzzer system, where actually one of the secretarial staff has to get up, walk out, see who's at the front door, and let us in, unless we have a key, but not everybody has a key. And the back door is completely unsecured. So anyone going down the back hallway of family court, where now attorneys, as well as family court people, litigants in family court, have full access to the rear door of our district attorney's office. So we're asking to have a swipe card system put in on the front and rear door, and it's a security issue, and I cannot urge you enough to let us install that for the safety of my staff in that office.
Might that fit the category of reserve account?
I knew you were going to say.
Thank you, Dennis.
I was just gonna say.
Probably not.
If It might. I don't want to say it wouldn't, because I'd be lying to you if I said it wouldn't, but I think that it's frowned upon for us to make enhancements to, physical plants out of that money.
Homeland Security grants, or set of TVs.
However, you'll be looking at that and see if there's anything under the parameters of that account that you could use.
We could examine that. And then the rest of it is for furniture for the district attorney's office as well as a conference room. If elected, I do plan on restructuring the office right now. Our office is set up terribly to conduct business, just by the nature of the structure. When we have grand jury proceedings, we have numerous witnesses in there. We have no place to put them. A lot of times we keep them separated. We can't even let them see each other. And so the physical constraints of our office are just horrible in that regard. But I have a plan on restructuring that, but it does include putting a conference table in and the chairs. And as far as the desk for the district attorney had been using Mr. Daly's personal desk up until last year. He then took that out when he opened his law office. They found a desk in the basement. I got locked out of it for about a half an hour the other day. It's missing thing. I mean, it's an old wooden desk that I sat there for half an hour trying to get into because it was just malfunctioning, so.
Without a seated Supreme Court justice, is there more room available for the use over there?
No, because I think the state, through the family court, rents out the rest of the fourth floor. We're on the fourth floor.
I was wondering if it could have leveraged some space or not.
I will say, though, that when we have grand jury and we ask the security staff if we can use some of those conference rooms in the back, they have been great to us. But it's a function of how busy they are.
$6,400, almost $6,400 though for conference room furniture and a desk is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, but it's not cheap. I mean, I can't, I had her price out everything. And I do want to say this too, because going back, I want to go back to 2006 with our budget. And in 2006 through 2009, we had about $3,800 in that equipment line that we never used. In 2010, there was zero. In 2011, there was zero. 2012, there was zero. So really, when you amortize that over the 7 years, you're talking about approximately $750 a year for equipment over the last 7 years.
I do that when I try to buy a new dining room set at home too. How much does it cost me every year? I just think that I don't know how much we've spent as a county on office furniture over that same period of time. It's probably right there in the same church.
But we actually donated the money, I mean, not donated it back, but we didn't use it. We didn't use the money that had been allocated, so there was savings to the county.
Except if somebody reviewed it and thought it wasn't critical, as other departments do sometimes by saying things are tough, and they're no tougher than they are right now. And what's the percentage, Dennis, 9%?
What?
The budget increase if we don't really make significant cuts?
That was our prelim. That was our prelim.
And finally, I guess just on that note, I do want to say that this year, by operation of a lot of different things, my personnel expenditures are going to save the county about $50,000. That money that was allocated to my personnel line that we didn't use because I was filling positions and doing the job myself for the first
Which
couple
that
months.
brings up the question, is any of this stuff, I mean, obviously, we can look probably November, December to see how much is left in his accounts and see if there's anything that can be purchased. Is that a fair statement?
I think Mr. Decker, though, just sent over a memo that he's taking a bunch of that money and reallocating it.
That's called a shell game.
So if I didn't spend it, though, I don't want it attributed to me.
When you get up into the temporary employees,
Yes.
and the budget that we had 11,200 to date, at least, I don't know to date when, this is the actuals at 5882. Look at 2011, you spent 8,600. Are we really expecting that you're going to spend the other $6,000 or $5,500 this year? I don't know what that temporary employees are. What is that?
Is that, we did ask for a 50-cent raise in that position because, a dollar raise, I'm sorry, and I don't think that has seen an increase since
What's the position?
2008. Part-time traffic clerk, 19 and a half hours.
That's what's in that, a 10-100 is a $1 an hour increase for 2013? Is that what you're saying?
Is that what it is?
That was
I'm
not
on
put in
page
there.
3.
That was not put in there.
So we haven't spent money this year, thank you. We're at 5882 through when, Bertie? When is this reflected through?
Yesterday.
So when we're into October, and there's like $5,500 or whatever there is there.
She works 19 and a half hours a week.
This is, that's all it is one person reflected in this budget?
Yeah.
So,
So she's not gonna spend $11,000 on it.
Well, 5,000.
We'll be adding a little bit more money.
Right,
for
5,000.
raises, et cetera, so we'll have.
what are we gonna be doing, Jim?
We'll be, that 503 is not enough, Bernie and I will need to add to that.
No, actually, his salary, what says 489 is actually gonna be 520 for next year.
Where are we? I'm on the top of page 3. Where are you?
Well, that's where they're talking to.
What are you saying, 489?
See, we don't discuss this usually, we usually do it in a separate meeting, so that's something.
And I didn't know that.
No, no.
I didn't know that.
So my
I
point
didn't
is
either
that
when I asked the
there's not
question.
enough money there, is my point.
Right, right.
That's all I'm
And
saying.
she started, I think it was the 23rd of June, 2009. I looked that up, and she's been the same rate since that day.
Oh, 400.
And because of the nature of the beast, there's always, well, we always presume that things can happen within a department that they might need more. You never know in law enforcement what might happen,
So,
or you need extra help.
can I just understand, as been the practice, the temporary employee is one person. While we may not spend it, we're going to need it up under salaries. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you said, Jim?
Absolutely.
Okay, so,
I always, and I drive Bernie nuts, I always use the 503 number.
I understand, but the savings that Jeff has indicated, we're gonna have savings that maybe, next year is gonna be an annualized savings, but this year there's savings because of the other changes you didn't fill.
Correct.
And this assumed they were filled. And yet you're saying we're gonna come up short?
No, next year.
For 2000.
If every job, if every
2013.
position in his salary schedule is
Now,
filled.
we'll have another $30-something thousand to play with. What-
So is
That will
this, the
For this year.
489 for 2013
Correct.
has vacant items continuing to be funded?
No, it has full-time positions that have all been filled now, that weren't filled
Okay.
for probably 6-7 months, Jeff.
One was not filled for 2 months, and one was not filled for 3 months.
But the annualizing it, you're saying it's going to be adjusted. I'm just trying to understand. In 2012, they were there.
For 2012, before we took the 13,000 there at the last meeting, there would have been about, I think, 40, my projection is 48 to 52,000.
Of savings because of the juggle.
Savings to the county. What I'm saying for
What about your year?
2013, what I'm saying for 2013, the 503 number is not good enough. And that won't be finalized till we talk with, the Ways and Means Committee and set those things, would probably be done over the next couple of weeks.
So if we're gonna buy furniture, this would be the year to purchase.
Absolutely, and that's what I think what that was.
Unless you know you don't have enough money next year.
Well, but you're.
That's the point.
Use the money, yeah.
That's the point.
If the committee decides to do it, our recommendation would be to do it this year.
That's fine.
To give fellows the authority to
Okay,
go
I'll-
on.
That's
Pick your colors.
That's
Pick
the
your
bad
colors.
conference table?
No,
And-
what I'm saying, the committee needs to say yes or no, we're gonna do it. And then Pat usually says, make a recommendation, Bernie and Jim.
This is for the conference room.
And this is one of the chances this year we have to do it.
And just.
We don't have many opportunities.
Conference room to see how many people.
8, I believe.
So we're talking $6,500, $6,400 for a desk and a conference table with 8 chairs.
Have you ever been out shopping?
Yeah,
You're
I
buying
know.
office space, it's not-
Go to corporate.
Well, and the thing is too, do you want something that's trustworthy, or you want something that's gonna last?
I'll make the motion.
Well, we need to have them look.
Sorry.
No.
What you can do,
I should've.
you can, based
I
on,
thought we had to get it next year. The recommendation from Mr. Walsh, if we're gonna do it, is to do it this year.
Before December 31st.
This budget.
okay,
You can take this up down the road, we're gonna have a lot of meeting down the road.
They roll out yesterday. And move it.
I'll make a motion, let them purchase the furniture, or the.
So you're gonna do a budget interchange, or
Transfer the
where are
money
you
out
doing it?
of salaries
Something to
and
transfer.
allow, you have to move forward.
prior to December 31st.
How much money are you moving?
And I agree.
$9,906.
So that's to do the security system
Security
also.
and,
Yep.
Yeah, because you save the money.
Because to me, the security system should be done. That's a no-brainer.
I don't have any debate with that, I just question do we even know, do we have furniture around that would work?
Well, could you look and research if we could save a couple bucks?
No, I've never been in there. Is it junk?
And if there's something like that desk he has, like block them out.
No, I'm not purchasing the furniture, if you find something on sale, I'll be on.
Jeff,
You
is
use state
there,
contract, you use state contract.
All in favor?
Some of it can.
Aye.
Jeff, the only thing is, Jeff, is if we're agreeing with that, but you said you're gonna look into seeing if we can spend some of that reserve money for the camp.
Not anymore. Motion was just passed.
Third.
You want our conference table? Buy a couple of
Buy a new
Large
one.
meeting a couple weeks ago, we had to put like 2 tables together, mismatched tables. It's terrible, it's not professional.
You want to go in my house. Fall down when you sit. So you're talking a long time.
I wanted to get that money out of that fund.
He's gonna look into it, he's only being sarcastic. He could use that money on the other.
He doesn't have to, he just said it, you just passed it to come out of here. Dennis said look into his funny fund, and now you didn't have to, you gave him authority to take it out of this.
Pay the 50 grand, you have to buy it back, I'll buy it down. I agree, you ever been up there? You been up there? I have.
I'm not saying you don't need it, go to the funny fund.
Can we adjust the insurance? Okay with that?
Yeah, it shouldn't have to be any more than.
That's a furnace number.
12 actually.
Which one are you at now?
I'm sorry, 4021, 43000.
No, down.
Yeah, if anything, it'll go down.
So the 8803 was gonna go down?
6613.
Oh, okay.
Hey, this year, on your birthday this year.
Yep.
Not a lot of, we got appointed.
I'm not gonna have any.
I didn't, yeah, no.
I'm there too.
It's just, he has $9 for two, it's just a scholarship. Scholarship. I'll keep you up.
Oh, yeah, sweet. No, that's good.
Yeah, I'm we're reading the notes and
You know, our vehicles are old, but we can't estimate repairs, gas prices. We love that crystal ball on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
$6 in California.
Retirement benefits, that's a memo from Mr. Decker, I don't have anything to do with that. That's about
Jeff,
14.5.
Pat, if I might, access to grants or aggressiveness in getting grants, how successful are we? Do we have opportunity for more grants? I don't know. I'm just-
We have 2 grants in place in the district attorney's office right now. One funds one of the assistant district attorney's positions, the other one funds my victim services coordinator position. You know, yes, there are other grants out there, but what we begin to see is that the administration of the grants far outweighs the benefit that you get from them, and then it becomes a personnel issue as to who's going to be the person responsible for the grant writing, number one, and then number two, just the administration of it. And we just lost the 3rd grant. It wasn't a grant to us, but it funded one of our positions. So those wells are starting to dry up, but we certainly look at them as much as we can. And we'll continue to do so, obviously.
It's more and more difficult to be able to put those grants towards county functions. It's almost impossible.
And then when you get them, you don't get the money that they say you're gonna have.
Whoever's asking for those radios, I fully support that, by the way.
Out of your funny fund?
Well,
That was a joke, that was a joke. Because he
I
said
don't know
he
if counting the funny fund is the.
I don't think so either. So,
It's a funny, you're laughing.
there are places in this county that I've been recently that we don't have any radio or cell phone coverage, and it's pretty difficult to run up the road to make a phone call, to come back down, to go back up to, and
Well, they're telling us that you can buy the best one that you need for $500, but if you buy it through the federal grant, it costs you $1,500. So maybe out of your funny money, what, I don't know what to call it, reserve, restricted fund.
Like your Medicare.
Right.
That RFP project.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Which one are you talking about?
The logs.
Any other questions?
I'm up front and been down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It should have been ahead of time.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, just one.
Yeah, you have it?
You gonna want to, it shouldn't, I mean,
Hey, Jeff.
if you would have come out of the position, why would it cost more? There's something missing the first trip around.
Yeah, but a lot of times you can, nice it a lot of times.
I understand what you're saying, I have 37 years, I do.
Yeah, and I think that you can get a lot better deal, especially if you.
When it's not documented, that's what, that's, you don't do that, do it your own business. You don't do that with government.
Really?
You should. Because the gates are on the side, I've seen games that are done on the side.
A lot of villages play games like that.
Yeah. But we stand on it one morning, with him getting all this information, when they were the only ones.
Okay.
That count to what?
One card game, you gotta go.
Because I said to him, I said, okay, can we do something wrong with this guy's business value? He says, look,
Have to get on the job site, just one person doesn't do anything.
What's wrong? Oh, John? Oh, where was it?
Hi, guys. Jim, how are you? Thanks, Jim.
No.
Thanks, Jim, too. That was useful.
No, we ate them all. We haven't ate them all ever.
No, I usually bring a dozen. There's usually a ton of them
No, but
sitting
even with that we've had.
there.
You shouldn't be in there bothering them people.
Yeah, then no one will show.
Can you please open a window up for me, please?
Sure. Ease on.
No, Jim did a good job last week there with the rubber bands and the thing and everything.
I like the rubber.
That's years of experience.
That's right.
Trying to save money.
Hey, Chris. What's going on? How's the northern country up there? How's the northern country up there? Fairfield, windmills. Windmills.
We have the sheriff here. And sheriff. And,
Good morning.
Yeah, the state series.
not everybody's as jovial as you. Okay, Jim Wallace.
You'd be happy when
The sunshine.
Let's take a look at these.
You know, revenue, not a big difference, $10,000 less than the welfare fraud investigator. Trying to bring it more in line where it's been the last few years. Other than that, any questions, I'm sure Chris and Donnie can answer for you.
Are we, which one are we looking at? The sheriff or the public sheriff?
Sure. Done by the sheriff. Public safety was on there. Go to page 3 of that. Again, Chris can talk to this about that at nighttime. We're asking for one vehicle. And the price of vehicles, as we discussed the other day, has gone up dramatically for police vehicles.
We used to be able to buy a car for around $25,000 in market and fully equip it. And we can't do that anymore. We got to ask for $30,000 on the mark, $28.50 on the silver car.
What kind of miles they put on a car like that a year?
It depends, John, what we're doing to the cars. We have one civil car that we need to replace, that's the one that goes pretty much on the outside of the county. And then we have other civil cars, warrants cars that stay pretty much in villages and towns. And then we have a marked car that we'll get into on the jail side of the budget. But we need to replace one of those civil cars. Obviously, if it's on the outside of the county, it's running some of the dirt roads, rough roads. It's got 90,000 miles on it. So we need to think about replacing that.
Chris, if you got two different cars that are equipped two different ways, could you equip maybe both the cars the same way and just swap them off so the mileage is not so far?
We actually do.
You do that?
We do that.
Oh.
Now what will, yeah, the marked cars are all equipped exactly the same, and the civil cars are all equipped exactly the same. So we can do that. Our warrants cars, obviously, we put a cage in it, because we're arresting people and, you know, for the safety of our officers, you want to have a cage in the car. We do swap them out, and what we do is when we bring a new one in, that normally goes to the village, and then one of the ones with more miles on, we put that back on the outside. So we rotate the cars in a manner, like if the undersheriff and I get a car, we drive them, then they go down to the civil guys. And we rotate them like that. So we are, you know, trying to use them as wisely as possible.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sheriff, and your salaries account, in years gone by, you've had surpluses that you transferred from sheriffs to the jail through the length of the year. It looks like, according to the actuals, you're not going to be able to do that like you have in the
No, we're not. That's 2 or 3 years now. Yeah, that's been going on for a while.
And that would be because, just for education?
We're busier, civil-wise. We have some of our civil guys doing jail transports when they have to. They're doing juvie transports. They're helping out with the warrants. We have our welfare fraud investigator. We only have one part-timer doing that now. We have like 120 potential cases that we're looking at, and he's only part-time. We need to slide somebody else in that also.
If you do juvenile transports,
We get
is there
reimbursed.
reimbursement from
Yes.
DSS for that?
And we also get reimbursed on the welfare fraud investigators too. And we're not utilizing that like we should.
You could do full-time and then get how much reimbursed?
We could do a full-time, if we could hire a full-time investigator. But you just can't hire anybody to put into that. It takes the right person. Right now, we have the right person doing it part-time. He's very experienced and he's doing a really great job.
He wouldn't want to go full-time, Chris, he'd like to part.
Chris, if Joe Public suspects welfare fraud, is there a number they can call?
Can't go. There is a state hotline. We're working right now on setting up a local hotline.
Does the state hotline then get forwarded down to you?
That comes
To
out.
the DA?
Yes, but we're working on another hotline right now because we feel that people be more comfortable calling the local than the state.
Chris, I got another thing. Do you take the prisoners and take them out and let them pick up stuff along the road? I don't remember
Just
what.
put them back
we
in
did.
the underwear.
Well, no, we talked about that a while ago. Actually, I'm talking about taking them out, fixing abandoned cemeteries or something. That wouldn't take jobs away from anyone else. But it's a liability issue, I think.
No, I think the public would respect
I
your department
I
a
agree
lot
with you.
more. If we get them out of the, let them do something.
I agree with you.
Let them do
We
something.
get our own jail, but.
Well,
Because we,
You're on the right track, go ahead.
because we don't, we're spending time transporting prisoners back and forth when those deputies could be. programs that can
Again,
do that.
correct me if I'm wrong, we've been talking about this for
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it has to be
They have to be
sentenced.
sentenced.
Right.
Am I right?
Yeah,
There's so many-
sentenced inmates. And
And
you
so
have to
what
remember
Chris tries to do
too,
is try to send the sentence inmate so he doesn't have to take them back and forth.
and the ones that we would feel comfortable doing that with are the ones that are boarded out. We keep the worst here because the other jails won't take them.
That's right, the more.
Or charge us a lot more. Yeah. So in the future, if we ever get a jail where we can keep all our inmates here, I would definitely look at that. I'd love to do that.
That would be smart to do. Good for the inmates.
Yeah, it is.
He told me they had to agree to it.
Less problems for us.
Freaking
But
crazy.
if people are looking for inmates to help them out in various not-for-profits, the state has some
The state does.
program, because the Old Fort Fire Department has used it every year.
My brother used to come up to the baseball camp.
Frankfurt for that cemetery.
Did we buy a car last year, Chris, or no?
Yes, we did.
But when I look at the budget, unless, is it under the jail? Because I don't see it here, Brian.
Well, if you remember, a lot of times,
We all can't be talking at once here, so maybe we could address the chair so that I can try to get some good discussion going versus everybody talking at the same time. There was a question in regards to the car last year, but remember, we're on the civil end, we're not on the,
I didn't know which end we bought it, that's my
I believe what
question.
happened is he put money in the budget for cars and we decided to buy them in last year's budget, in year, so we bought them in, no, that was still 2011.
How many years you get out of
Right.
civil time, Chris? I don't know,
I just thought we bought one.
You got a couple 06s.
Where did it get expenses on?
Would it be more beneficial to lease the car?
islands.
Might as well kill
I
you.
mean, yeah, I was wondering how many miles you're putting on. How many miles you have for your
The one civil car that we need to replace, Mr. Chairman, is 89,000. And the one marked car, when we get to that, is 121,000 miles.
and what year are they?
The one with 121,000 miles and it's an 07. We also have another mark with 97,900 miles on it. That's a 2008. And the civil car with the, you might as well say 90,000 miles on it, is a 2006.
So Bernie just
15
verified we
grand.
bought it
So it's not
last year
bad,
in
I mean,
jail.
average.
So you could lease one, just rotate.
15,000 a year is what
That's
I'm
new.
No, I'm saying you could rotate a lease in there and 15,000 mile a year lease.
I think at least one fully equipped.
7 years,
The
70,000.
civil car, I don't believe has kind of the same.
It has, doesn't it have sirens and things? Civil car, what's it got in it? Different than,
It has,
you don't buy those off.
it has sirens, dash lights, rear lights, radio.
It's not like go buy a town car, it has to have extra things so you couldn't lease them.
What
The
else?
mileage would
I
kill
just
you.
thought people would.
What else do you see here, Jim?
They put extra, $9,000 extra for fuel, and waste into and going, unless we want to take a risk and know that we'll have to give them money back later on. Everything comes out of their guys' right?
That's on page 4.
As you process,
Bernie-
serve,
Bernie will
is
take a look at the
a certain
insurance.
fee you can charge? Can we raise those fees?
I was worried about Chris's.
We really wanted us to-
Anything else, Jim?
You know, if you look at an average of 3 years, and pretty much right there, there's a whole nother route that we can make it.
If you go to the sheriff's patrol, the sheriff's boat patrol, we haven't been, I'm on page 6.
So we're done with,
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Again, on the fees, is there a way to petition the state to allow us to raise the process serving fees? Is that something we should be approaching our state representatives on, to generate more revenue? If this activity is going up, should we?
It's a possibility.
See what jurisdiction over we're thinking, and if there's something, I mean, I don't want the taxpayers to pay for it, if somebody's,
Yeah, it's a criminal still.
you know, doing something wrong and needs to be processed served, why should the taxpayers be putting the bill of it?
These are civil servings, on civil charges?
Process served?
Process servers, evictions, family court, we don't get reimbursed from family court or county court. And we serve a lot of warrants, notices to appear in family courts, orders of protection, evictions, removals, weapons removals. Sometimes, remove one of the spouses out of a house, we go and pick up kids.
Taxpayers be paying for this if these clowns are doing it. I mean, I don't know, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I guess sometimes, Dennis, if you look at some of the people that we're removing, they really don't have anything. You know what I mean?
people that got it, they aren't in jail. I know. But I mean, if there's some extra revenue we could generate, because the cost of serving is not going down, it's going up.
We've discussed this at the Sheriff's Association too, because all sheriffs are the same boat. We all do the same thing, and this is an issue, but
I mean, it's similar to probation, where we can charge a daily monitoring fee for someone who's on probation. If there's a way we could up the fees that these people gotta pay because we have to deal with them, then I think we should.
yeah, I'll see where our association's at on that.
And now I think we're over on the sheriff's goal. Page 6.
You're gonna notice that there's not a lot of money taken out of that yet, because the money that comes out of this is for our part-timers, for the temporary part-timers, not our part-timers on the sheriff's side. And what we'll do is, next week, our boats come back, our last boat comes back from the town of Webb. We'll get them put away, cleaned up, navigation's over, we'll get our final report from our navigation officers, and Donald will compile what the salaries were. Then what we do is we transfer money from this account into our sheriff's side salary account. To
It
make
doesn't
up
look-
for what?
It doesn't look like it happened in 2011.
Yeah, just look below.
Yeah.
Under permanent part-time.
So you're moving it from,
We don't move it until after the end of the year. We take some out for, like you see that we've spent like $1,700. We take, after we're done with navigation, we take that money out of there, we put it back in the sheriff's side where it came from.
Chris,
Okay.
you try to
right.
utilize that the best you can, because we do get a little bit of money from the state.
Absolutely. yeah.
Okay.
What
Thank you.
happened in the town of Webb this year, at the end of July, we lost one of our very dedicated part-time employees up there, was on the boat patrol. Frank Burrett moved back to Monroe County. And that really helped us out a lot. And the year before that, Jack Graham became the town justice up there, we lost him. We are currently looking for another employee from the town of Webb to help next year supplement that patrol.
Part-time job for Pat.
Sounds like the people who do it, because they like to,
It gets very monotonous, but,
but the ones that do it like to.
and, you gotta be at least trained police officer navigation training, and again, it takes a certain person to do it, you just can't put anyone out there.
so this budget doesn't reflect an increase in retirement. Some of them did, some of them didn't, right? This one does not reflect the increase. So,
What page are you on now?
I just went back to the front to see, because I was just looking at the bottom line to say, okay, where does it stack up against what it was for 2012 versus what it's going to be for 2013? And until you go back and you look at the retirement, you can see the retirement is not increased. So we've got to figure another, what did we tell them, 15%? 15.7% on top of that payroll?
And one of the reasons, Helen, we did not do that, we talked the other day, kind of like Bob, this was a crazy year for us. And again, I don't want to get into a lot of the specifics, because people were sick and, and those kinds of things. We had several people who we were basically, because of what we needed to do.
No, my point is we should be consistently looking at each of the department budgets, either it's in or it's not
But
in.
the problem is, within the sheriff and the jail, it's not reflective of a typical year. And I didn't want to.
You mean the payroll cost?
Right, I didn't want to overflate that retirement cost. We'll be working on that in a couple of weeks. We met over it the other day and talked about it. So that's why we didn't do it. We are trying to do it for most departments. But we didn't, we thought it in a tough year, because there's not a lot of extra money, it'd be the wrong time to be doing that. Oh, here. Okay, jail. I don't, well, Dennis said should we make a decision on the car, but we don't have money within that for this year, right? No, we added, I think everybody knows, we added $250,000 the other day, and we'll probably have to be close to $250,000 again. By borrowing the savings. That's what you meant in regards to buying?
No, I mean, we're gonna make a decision on it.
Yeah, no, whenever you guys do
Yeah.
it, but there's not, like Pat said, there's not any money, you know, could we still $5 somewhere maybe.
Okay.
to be able to-
Traditionally, we try, and
Absolutely.
we can't this year, you're saying. Okay.
Okay, Jim, jail. Any questions on the revenue? Again, I think you see the small, third decrease in the PWI money on the top. Mike talked to you guys about that last week. The state's getting a little tougher, the money in PWI has been used the last 4 or 5 years, so that's down. Everything else is pretty.
No, DWI has no impact on our jail.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, you know.
But they almost have to do away with all of it. Which is nuts to me.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, same with mental health issues.
right,
Say that the alcohol and mental health issues aren't compatible.
in probation.
Doesn't make sense to me.
What about, you know,
They haven't gone after probation though,
okay.
but they have after the all in their departments and they have after. We were, I think, the last mental health in the state gave them one. But again, like Mike said, we just have to do it. They come a couple years from now and say.
They're fine with enforcement? If you want to
As I woke up this
go
morning,
on,
it's probably more every afternoon.
I mean, they'll go with it.
That's okay for
They'll
the.
pay for it.
Well, I remember we used to send somebody to state police and they stopped that. That doesn't go to state police.
Yeah.
Nobody else stays local. But this basically pays most of our inmate services coordinators' salary. That's what that pays for. And that's being very creative.
Yeah.
Are we talking about 1590? I mean 3150?
1590,
Yeah.
under 3150.
So we're short, we're gonna be short though, right? If I read the way Bernie's got this?
They're cut, that was cut $6,000.
But we're still, how do we fund the rest of the person, absorb it in the bottom line?
Excellent.
Somebody up there.
I didn't realize, did you get both of them?
Somebody up there.
If you look on page 4, sheriff's asking for another vehicle, $30,000. And again, this will be a Mark car for
Mark Carr replaced the one with $121,000.
Chris, with your transporting, how fast are you burning cars out now?
Well, that definitely doesn't help.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting,
It doesn't help, and we're going further away now too.
yeah.
So, that doesn't help either.
If we went either or, which car do you need more?
Yes. If we had to get another year out of civil car,
You said 96,000, right?
Could we lease a car for you, Chris? Or do you have to have the one with everything in it? I mean, I recognize the position, you have to respond to those situations, but would we be able to lease one for you?
there are, I think there's some other agencies that do lease cars, but I don't know how they make out the end. You gotta remember one thing, when you turn a lease in, if it's not spotless, you're gonna pay. It's the way it is. You got guys getting out with guns on them. Sometimes you get, the civil car does sometimes take people in the back seat, they get unruly, they mark up the interior, That's what happens, and I know from experience, when you turn cars in on leases, they zing it.
I'm just thinking, you have a specific car that you
Civil-
ride.
People have been in and out of who knows where,
You don't,
cracking back into that car.
Does your vehicle get that kind of use? I mean, is it possible that it could be a specific vehicle, I'm talking about for the sheriff, that wouldn't get that kind of beating?
it depends on who's available and what's going on. They respond to different things. Sometimes they stop and they'll help the local police if they're in the area. They'll stop and they'll help the state
I
police.
think he's asking,
I'm talking you
you have a
exclusively.
specific car of your own.
Yes.
I think she's asking. Your specific. Do you have other people using it, is what?
No, not the one that I drive. We move those down to the civil guys when.
Yeah, I think she was talking about your specific car.
Could we lease one specifically for you?
I almost lost that up in Poland, the flood last year. And I do go on back roads with it. I asked a couple of years ago for an SUV, so that in the middle of the night, if I get called out somewhere, I can go. And we didn't, we stuck with cars. So, who knows?
Yeah.
Chris, you said something about traveling more. Is United County giving you a problem with taking the people from here?
Yes. Why? They have a new private medical firm that took over all their medical, and they have to clear any inmates that they board in. So if they're even on antihistamines, they say, no, we don't want them. So then we have to go to Madison, we're using Madison County now, which is, that's a little tight too. No, they won't take meds right now. They got enough of their own problems, I guess is what they're saying. They don't want our issues, our problems. They'll take our nice inmates, okay? Good ones that are healthy.
You really had a serious talk with them about that? I mean, really,
That's what's going
you
on.
pressure them a little bit?
When they call up there and ask if they'll take an inmate, they say no. I don't make the calls up to board out inmates, we got people that do that in jail. But that's what's going on.
If there's any meds involved, it's already ruled out.
They really don't want our house.
You gotta send
They want our nice inmates that they can sit there, they're gonna behave. It's not gonna cost them any more manpower or any other further services they have to provide.
How many nice ones do we have?
Not many.
They just want that check.
Send them home on a bracelet.
The nice ones. Montgomery, we can't put anybody in.
Why is that? No cameras on.
Cameras what? They have issues. There's issues, there's just issues.
Well, I just read their budget. They did away with office raising, did away with cooperative extension, did away with most of soil and water, and increased their boarding out fees, revenues, by like $500,000.
Where they get the money.
To the pie in the sky.
They're boarding in fees? Are you saying they're boarding in or they're boarding out?
Revenues.
Revenue.
Increased. But from when I ran, there was issues.
They get more money.
They have
We are
guarantees
gonna help them find out
beds for the
They're over.
federal inmates.
Okay.
Just went
And the
there.
federal
Well, maybe
inmates,
that's the money's
and the federal inmates pay
$120,000.
$115 a day.
And they're,
We don't.
they forget.
Well, so that's probably legitimate. They're just getting it from them.
Yeah.
It was just
Absolutely. I was just curious.
Did you
I
say
knew
we would
we
do the
couldn't get
same
them.
thing? We
Absolutely.
would, not we do, okay.
No, we would do the same thing. I mean, we have an opportunity to make $115 a day boarding them in for 80. We're gonna look out for our taxpayers' needs.
What else?
That answers that simple.
Right now we're on page 4, what else?
I think, we've talked about before, the medical and the drugs is a crapshoot every year. When you look at a 3-year average, it's pretty close to those numbers, up to 80,000. We talked a little bit about the food. I think, Chris, maybe if you could talk about the cook show and if we could get more services if we can.
If Cook Joe could work it out so we could buy more from them, things that would comply with the nutritional, we got to look out for our sodium intakes, fat intakes. We have a nutritionist that goes through our menu every year, analyzes it, and then we have to adjust our menu accordingly. And Cook Joe right now, I mean, I think they have for the sodium, probably in their foods. And they talked before, we discussed that before with them, that they would like to make it so that we can buy more for them, from them. There's certain things we can buy, there's certain things we can't buy. They don't give us fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and I hound the cooks, we'll buy meatballs, buy meat sauce, things like that. So, I mean, they use it as much as they can. I think they're doing a really good job.
What's our average, is there such, do you have that, the average cost of feeding a day per inmate in-house?
Just under $6 a day, I think we feed. Just under $6 a day. Pretty good. That's.
Is that each meal? Is
No,
that?
total, 3 meals a day.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
That's it, average it out. You know, it doesn't cost much for a bowl of cereal, some toast and a So on an average, I think it's about, we figured that out, it's under $6.
Are they hypercritical, Chris, of us on the type of menu? I mean, I can appreciate in a nursing home or someplace you're looking for variety, but is anyone saying, oh, you're not offering enough variety, or is it just the nutritional content?
We get audited by these.
Flood in here.
I'm sorry.
We get audited each year from the state education department for meals, school lunches, that program. We get reimbursed accordingly, depends on how many minors we have. Unfortunately, we board out a lot of minors, so we don't get reimbursed like we used to. So the reimbursement on the revenue is out on that too, because most of our minors are boarded out.
So then the critical eye on our menu, there's the critical people of it would be if it was a youth menu, that we don't get anyway.
Well, we have to comply. The State Commission of Corrections reviews our nutritional report, our audit year, and we have to comply with their standards. I mean, we can't do what Joe Farrell does and give them bologna sandwiches and pay rations. We can't do that.
Dennis has a question.
You can't give them
Do you have
rations in the military community.
dietitian on staff, how do you work?
No,
Contract?
we contract with the Office for the Aging, their dietitians, they have.
At our last meeting, we had a dietitian.
Right.
Is that'll cover your jail?
Yes.
Per hour?
Last year, we used the lady by the name of Lena Lawson, I think her name was.
She just left us a few months ago.
Yeah.
Is this a separate contract, or do they reimburse the office, does the jail reimburse the Office of the Aging for the use of our contract?
We actually paid her directly, yes, we did.
No,
She
it's
gave
not.
us a very, very good deal.
Can we compare it to what she gave us for the Office of the Aging? I think we're paying $40 an hour.
I don't know what, I don't know what we paid to the Office of the Aging, but I do know that she spent an enormous amount of time entering all of our menus and all the information, the caloric, whatever the terminology is, into a database so that next year, if she comes back, we could probably hire her next year. It'd be much simpler because she's got it all in her database. She can just come in, review everything, make adjustments, and print out everything.
I'm just glad that we're utilizing between agencies the same person.
The only one thing that we talked about is getting rid of the tractor,
Oh, yeah.
$2,600 back.
Right.
I'm sorry, right on page 4, Ford car, to make that 1,900 instead of 4,500. We'll work something out with Tim and make sure the sheriff comes up with that tractor. And that's not for over here, guys, so we're gonna ask Chris and laugh. No, that's for the radio, that's for the range. And that needs to be done.
For the luncheon?
That's for the range,
Where is it coming from?
Country Manor.
Page 4.
If Country Manor stays, they keep doing it, keep borrowing it,
Page 4.
and if it goes,
We take it with us.
it'll go over the
That's what it is, yeah.
So this is 1,900 that the sheriff's office buys it from Country Manor, is that what you're saying? What did we-
No.
$2,600.
If you look at those, a snow blower for $1,300, a vacuum and a step ladder, and a garden tractor, we're taking out the garden tractor.
Oh, I see.
We'll just keep using that one way or the other.
Pat,
Yeah.
I got one more question. Something you found with this. Did things change as far as getting back to, the things changed when Dan left and Bob took over as far as taking our business. The things changed.
Just at Oneida County, you mean?
Pardon me?
At Oneida County, you mean?
Yeah, the things change.
Yeah, yeah, well, remember I just said they just got a new private medical company that's now doing all the medical. They had their own medical before, like they had their own nurse, their own medical staff.
I'm sorry, okay, so that's a change.
That was the change. And I
I'm
think
sorry, okay.
it's got nothing to do with the sheriff and the
Okay.
sheriff.
Okay, thanks.
I understand.
So they must have done a cost analysis saying that this, better not to take any,
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
They're
struggling worse than we are.
And we pay for the meds.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say, don't we pay for the meds?
We get billed for the meds, yeah. Any physicals, any dental, we pay for all of that. Any added cost, we pay for. If they have to go to the doctors, we pay for that. We pay anything over that. We're gonna give you food, we're gonna give you clothing, and we're gonna watch you. That's it.
Do we
So, Chris,
pay them, I'm sorry.
So Chris, so,
Why is there, so why is there a problem, if we pay for that, well, that account, why is there a
I'm
problem?
guessing probably with the contract, they're allowing so many medical people to that facility, all right? I'm gonna allocate, we're all in here, I'm gonna send you and Jen to that facility, you take care of it. Well, they can take care of what they have, but if they have more people that have medical issues and problems, they probably can't cover it.
In other words, they have to probably.
They have to
hire
add
some-
another, I'm guessing that medical company, just a guess, that medical company had to add another staff if they take more people with medical problems. That's just my guess. And then they wouldn't be able to stay within their contract as far as the cost. It costs more.
You have a question now?
yeah, so Chris, just for all the people that are saying, I mean, debating the cost of boarding out, I mean, right there, you're saying that you really can't look at the boarding out fee, because the fee of the drugs and anything else isn't added into that boarding out cost, right?
No. Any medical, any.
So the bottom line, you're paying the boarding out fee plus any medical,
Yeah,
But you would pay if they were here anyway, if you paid medical.
right,
yeah, it comes out of our budget, our whole.
right, but when they're looking at a comparative thing,
It doesn't, no, you can't really do that.
right, because you gotta add in the
You can't really
medical,
use the number of inmates we have here to say this is what it costs to service this many inmates.
exactly.
So if,
Hang on a second, Kurt, Cat.
When we get billed for the medical, for prescriptions and whatnot, do we just pay for the prescription, or do we pay for, like, there's a time, there's staffing issues we gotta bring to the, down to be seen by the nurse or by the doctor, there's actually staffing issues with that.
They bring a dentist in, so if there's dental.
Right, you still gotta bring them to a room, and they gotta have staff bring them back.
Right.
So there's a lot of
There
other
are
costs
some other
involved.
costs
So, I mean,
involved.
that would be one of the reasons they're trying to pick that.
There's probably a couple of reasons.
so when we look at this budget here, when we're looking at your dental, your drug, it's for your entire population, jail population.
Correct.
So we don't pay, Oneida County or any of the other places, pay them for the drugs, we supply the drugs, or we pay their provider, or
They
what do we-
provide the drugs we pay their provider
directly, okay.
directly.
For all
which-
those services, ancillary services.
Right, which.
A dentist?
And we do, and dentist and everything. We do a comparison on the drug costs that we get from their provider. Our, Chemorex is our provider right now. We get a much better price on the drugs than we're getting from up there.
But you're bound to have to pay it.
We have to pay it.
Jimmy?
Can we put our inmates on a prescription plan, like the card we have?
Proact.
We talked about that.
Oh, yeah.
the other day. Steve and I were looking into it.
But then they have to go get it.
We haven't even had a chance to talk to Chris,
Health Direct.
because we've been going through so much, Jim, with Excellus and Proact and blah, blah, blah.
Proactive.
Chris,
Used to be kids.
Chris, Jim just brought up a very good,
So we are doing some research, and then we'll get back to Chris and see some.
Chris just,
Yeah, but let me just let you know that Health Direct is who services Oneida County, which is Proact and Kidney Drugs.
Okay.
Just want to let you know that.
Wait a minute.
so Jim, you brought up a very good point there, Chris. Can we look in to see if they have, say if they get arrested, say they get a DWI, they have insurance themselves. Why, can we look into having them covered by their own insurance?
Anyone that comes into our facility, if they have health insurance, we get the information and their health insurance pays for their medical and everything.
Oh, okay. You know, is anybody should be detained?
Well,
I know.
Alan?
It's a thought, it's a thought.
Alan?
The medical provision that we have, and what we're building in here, the oversight, or other than the nurse that we have on our payroll, the support that we receive from Dr. O'Keefe, no charges are billed here for Dr. O'Keefe services in this jail budget?
Nope. No, but we do have the nurse practitioner that we pay. The nurse practitioner uses Dr. O'Keefe as a collaborator, so, and they oversee the medical system within the facility. But we have a nurse practitioner that basically comes in once a week and checks every inmate that comes in.
Do we know, and how do we do dental?
Excuse me?
How do we do dental for inmates?
We take them out.
We take them out to the dentist. We have providers.
We don't take them out for cleanings or anything.
I hope not. Do we have an idea of whether the medical services that we're providing, I mean, I understand that O'Keefe is free, but he's really not. What we're getting at one point we thought we were in trouble with that, but that's gone away, Jim?
Yeah.
The cost, but that's only as long as we have a doctor in public health. Do we have any idea whether it's really a cost benefit to have this outside provider, like Oneida County has, something like that? I mean, have we looked at it to see what it means in terms of dollars and cents, how we're supporting it
We
versus?
could always take a look at it and get a figure, and then we could figure out what it actually costs us to staff the facility.
I mean, at one point, we had a contract and we lost the doctor, right? That's what happened to us. That guy, somebody from Little Falls, wasn't
They
it?
walked away. Bassett.
Walked away, yeah.
It was an overall with Bassett for Little Falls.
Chris, I think what I was getting at, Chris, is with Obama's plan, the kids, you're responsible for your kid. Your kid can be on your insurance till they're, what, 26 years old now?
Yeah.
Can we go back after the parents? Because, I mean, I'm not saying I'm saying maybe the parents are great people. They have good jobs or whatever. They have health coverage. Why should the county be paying for them if they're under 26 years old, if the parents do have insurance, which we can go back after their insurance?
Yeah, we
You follow what I'm saying? I mean, with the Obama deal,
Yeah, that's
if he gets reelected.
We do ask every person who comes in if they have health insurance.
But isn't it up to the parents now that they can still cover their child up to 26 years old, right?
Can, they don't have to.
Oh, they don't have to.
They may not want to pay for family coverage.
Not yet.
She doesn't live in it.
Yeah, but I don't think, Jim, I
They have to
think
live in the house.
that, no, not at all,
don't.
not at all.
You can be married and be on your.
You can be married to be, yeah.
College.
Yes, you can be married, that's what I'm saying. It's,
This is something we can talk to our consultant.
you know what I'm saying, Jim? Because, I mean, if you got,
We might be able to force the issue.
I mean, Chris, just for instance, okay, what's the average of under 26 over in our jail system right now?
Under 26?
We have people now.
No,
I know we do. We have like
I'm
20.
here, and I'm in Rochester, my kids are in Rochester, they're on our plan.
Yep.
20, I'd have to.
We're mandated to do that.
They can
Right,
go to-
but what if,
the insurance.
you see what I'm saying, no, under 26?
I know we got about
Pat?
20.
Our plan does that.
You see, Jim understands what I'm saying.
And I think most plans are.
Give them control.
Few people touch it at a time.
Jim, you understand what I'm saying, though, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
I think
I
so.
know my
You
sister,
do.
I mean, even if you're married, you can still be on your parents' plan now, and, I mean, if Obama doesn't get back in, we're all good to go by it.
You still gotta worry about Congress.
That might not change. Okay, Dennis has a question.
Chris, the county's
I mean, it's a lot of
in
money.
the process of trying to sell the Country Manor. Are there services rendered by the Country Manor to the pistol range that would be lost if that goes away?
No, the only thing that we do is we use their equipment.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, we just use their equipment.
So if the equipment goes away,
Yeah, that's what Jim was talking about earlier with the tractor.
Anything other than the tractor?
Vacuum, ladder.
yeah,
Well, the big tractor they use, they mow the whole around the training center and everything, and then we mow back up in the back into the rangeway.
Say we get sheep.
now, the pistol range, everybody has to qualify once a year? Is that correct?
Yeah.
And we have an agreement with Remington Arms also? How about local PDs, they use it?
They didn't use it this year, but they have been using it in years past.
How come they're using it?
State parole uses it.
How come the local department uses it?
They,
You see what I'm saying?
I don't know. They chose to, the only doesn't use it because they won't sign our agreement. We have a municipal agreement that, a mutual agreement that they have to sign, releasing us for any liability. We never did that in the past, but we signed one, our attorneys reviewed it and said, you know what, if Whitestown is doing it, then we better do it. So we modeled ours after Whitestown. State courts signed it, state parole signed it, state probation signed it. Every other PD signed it, but Ilion did not sign it. WEP doesn't use it. This year, Little Falls, I think Herkimer.
Is it like a memorandum of understanding can be signed every year?
Right.
If they
Well,
decide
no,
to use it,
they
or
sign it
just
once,
sign it
it's
once?
forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they have to qualify also, right, all those local PDs?
I'm not sure that the actual police officer has to qualify every year, but as a standard of practice, they should. It's mandatory for us to do it, because, you know, we have police officers in jail. It's mandatory that we spend 8 hours, some of it on use of force, and the rest of it qualified.
How much money we spending on their insurance?
I'm on page 6.
I got a question, Pat.
Yes.
Bernie, retirement, obviously.
It's not changed.
What?
That's not changed in this account.
Okay, that's huge. But as a percentage, don't the jail come under a higher percentage than our rank and file?
It does.
What are those percentages for the rank and file? What is it for the?
I think the regular one this year is gonna be around, actually around 20%, 20%, the jail is only 25 or 26.
Increase,
No, that's their percentage.
the percentage of payroll.
Yeah.
What's the increase?
The increase should be the same for both of them, or about maybe
But
15.
you're just saying one is at a higher rate and it's the same percentage on both rates?
Yeah.
Okay, page 7.
Jim, is that a realistic number, the 387?
No.
I mean, think it'll be less?
Isn't that increase gonna be more?
Then add the 15%.
For next year, it should be at least 60,000 more.
More than that?
Jim, you don't agree? Because of the
No,
non-funny
Well, it
things?
depends on the number of people, that's.
And I go,
Just look at.
I go person to person, who's in tier 6, who's in tier 5, who's in tier 1, who's in tier. Because the state system assumes a 5.4% raise every
Yeah.
year and
Yeah, it's based on their
projections from about,
Do you have that set up on a spreadsheet, or do you manually do this every year?
I do it at night every year.
Excel.
Well, it helps me, because when somebody asks me a question, I understand it better. That's how I learn.
He's a
I'm
visual.
not a smart guy, so
He's a visual.
when I do that, no, I'm just saying, it sticks with you a lot longer than, but I can do Excel sheets too. I like them.
My point is though, our levy can't go up by more than 2%, correct?
It
What are we
can.
looking at, burn about 3.4?
It would be,
I don't want to hold
right,
it, you got a better idea.
it'd be 2% plus, they have a couple of adjustments would bring it to about 2.4, and we also have a carryover that we could use from last year that would bring it to about 3.4.
But obviously, the retirement is the scariest factor. Everybody's looking at it across the state, every municipality.
Chris's guys are in with 30%. We're 2 years ago, 0.
And zero for a few years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be about, actually, in dollars, say $1 million, how much we could raise the tax rate.
I mean, New York State is in better shape than some of these states that don't have fully funded pension programs, there's no question
That's
about
probably
that.
probably the best.
It's, but to sustain it, I don't know how the
And the
taxpayers
counties that
can.
have- the
I don't know,
counties that
I don't know. I mean, it's wonderful that it's funded, rather than partially funded or
But we're lucky,
fractionally funded.
we're
But
lucky that we didn't
But I don't
float
know
it,
what's
and we
going on.
paid it.
I don't know what's going on.
We should be adjusting for certain.
Then the public will pay again.
with fringes.
Absolutely.
We should be adjusting that, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any idea what we should adjust that average to?
I'll get it to you.
Who do we do that with?
Just so we know.
Some you're talking to people who are training and then default on their training, no?
Yeah,
For services to other agencies or.
Oh, okay,
or it's,
okay.
Well, what about when they default on training?
Meetings,
Have-
That too.
Would it also apply to the ones who in default on,
Gotcha.
I don't know why I couldn't. I don't know why I couldn't.
That's a
We just have a
cost.
standard,
And that's contractual.
we just have a standard 10,075.
And how much does it cost us? When you factor in the new cost?
I have to do the math on it.
We can look at it.
Talking about the train.
That's
Have
something
we collected
negotiate.
any recently?
Yes.
And where does that go? Did we go past that in revenue side?
Yes, it does. We have collected.
When you're charged back on training?
$10,000 if they leave within 1 year, $7,000 if they leave within 2, and $5,000 if they leave within 3.
What budget category is that? Maureen?
Bernie's got it,
I
right?
mean, I'm just curious, is there anything
People
here?
paying us back?
Yes. I
You
don't
see some
know.
of the covers?
In your recollection, have we collected in the recent past?
Yes, last year.
We did last year? Where would you put that, Bernie?
It might not be in here, it might be unclassified revenue, which actually shows in a different account.
Right.
But I just wanted to.
When do we look at that budget?
When we do the general revenues.
Yeah, I think we're like 60, 70,000 over budget.
Last year, they changed the reimbursement law, so if we train someone, it used to be any municipality under the 50,000 population could, if we train somebody, let's say we train Jim, and he leaves and goes over to the other gym. If I was a municipality under 50,000 population, I could bill Jim for what we put into him, total cost. Last year they changed it, now I think it's anything over 200,000. So now, if we have someone leave, and go, if Jim leaves me now and goes over to that gym, I can bill him total cost of what it costs us to train him.
Wow.
Let's go to
And so,
31.
wait, Pat, just, could you go back to that just for a second, sir? Are we set in place to really do that? We should be getting the new figures on what that true cost is. And people, I don't know if we've had people pulling.
It changes. If we have someone that's been with us for 1 year, we send them to police school, you don't have the steps or anything involved. If he's here 2 years, he obviously is making more money. So you can't come up with just a general figure.
I'm talking
You have to
formula.
figure-
I'm talking formula.
I don't even know if you can come up with a
Right now
formula.
it's contractual, so we'll have to look at it.
I think.
Well, but he said it's the law.
We just,
Because of health insurance and who's 1+1 and who's single and who's.
everything changes.
How long do you have to back charge? I mean, if
Take a look at it.
Mr. Bono was 5 years with you, can you still charge what it
No,
cost you to
it's a
train?
3 year.
3 years, okay.
Let's go to 3170.
That's also gonna be a deterrent for him to hire that person, too.
Do I get a company car?
31 stuff.
I wish we had one.
Correctional institution, contracted services. Bottom of page 7.
And I think Bernie and I would recommend 1.1 or 1.2 million. Chris and Donna's done their due diligence and take a look at about what we're gonna spend this year. And again, if the legislature's calling, what you guys wanna do with it.
So 1.5, 1.2?
Well,
That's coming from us, it's not, these guys looked at the math this year and say it's 1.5. We gotta give them the money no matter what.
Yeah.
So that's,
Find it somewhere.
The 892,000 goes back to what
so
date?
it's and it's an issue
How
where
far are
you
we
have a
billed?
fund balance, and if you have a normal year, you'll be
The
fine.
end of August,
But if not, you.
892,000 is through the end of August,
we
bills
ran
are...
out of money to pay August. At the end of August, it's $936,299.75. We haven't paid August's bill yet, correct? Because we didn't have enough money, we ran out of money.
So 892,000 is through July?
And, yes,
Oh, that's not the current.
that's
And it's part of, and Bernie says it's part of August.
That is part of August, but not, at the end of August, total January through August is $936,299.75
It's
for
like
cycle.
a 1.3, 1.35.
It's about where we're on track for.
Now, Dennis just brought up a good point. This is included because we haven't had those 7 cells.
450,000.
How is that? Is it 7 cells?
So,
What is he saying?
Yes, 7 cells.
7 cells.
But we,
7 cell lines.
This morning, I think we had like 32 or 33 in, which is more than we should have. We boarded out this morning, 6 o'clock. We headed out with 5 inmates.
What's the story on the cells?
3 people
Wow.
at my nephew's
I
house.
just got the date, did I send that to you? The date.
I've been in here, so it could be on my head.
The roll call. November, from the time that they initially came down until the time we ordered it, things changed with the company. Obviously, they got a big contract, which pushed us back. We're only 7. November 11th, I think, is the delivery date for the locks.
So how have you got 32?
Dan, that's
We
the
got
question.
blocks of wood?
Not ask that
Blocks of
question.
wood, yeah, I'm sorry. Blocks of wood. Work your magic.
Okay, so is your 1.5 though, considering the fact that those cells will be in operation? So then it's up to us to make a decision what we want to do there, but it's either going to be that or contingency, right?
No, probably be fund balance. Budget's just so tough, we probably looking at fund balance.
We got 50 boarded out. Just want to let you know that.
For next year, you're talking about fund balance?
Well, for this year,
September,
possibly next year. But, well, it depends on the company.
26 right now.
Ship 5 out.
So our contingency fund right now is pretty much exhausted.
Correct, we got a little over 100,000 left, and we've got Chris probably $300,000 we gotta get to Chris.
So the rest of that will be coming out of fund balance.
Well, we've got couple other spots.
But
I was gonna ask about that, what's within the budget, vacancies that haven't been filled and things like that, is there
Right.
money buried in
You
here?
know, Chris, DA mentioned earlier, we stole $14,000 to take care of the electronic monitoring. So, I mean, we could have something ready for you next week if you want. Or we think there are little pots of money and where our major expenses.
Well, we can do that.
Chris's department and elections. Elections is
But it-
another tragedy
okay.
that has to be primary that never go over it.
As you go to the little pots of money that we got and you find them, do we reflect back on what the budgets will, I mean, so often the budgets are predicated on what was budgeted last year, not necessarily, so if the budgeted amount wasn't needed because you've been able to, you know, scoff up some of the little pots of money, will that then be reflected in going forward to 2013?
I think it has to, huh?
Yeah, so we may have already looked at those programs, but as you, if you find pockets, then we're gonna build it back into our sheets too to know about it?
Right.
Thanks.
as you know, Mr. Wiles goes back to the department head meeting and say, try to do what you can without it.
But the message also gets out, if they know you're gonna steal the pocket, I got an awful big emergency.
No.
It does, I mean,
State does that.
I know you say on top of it, but I mean, the inclination would be to do that. I can understand, it's human. It's human.
What else, Jim?
That's $64,000.
What else?
100,000. And Vern, you're gonna work with Don and the sheriff on the grant and stuff, right?
Yes.
Equalize the level.
Oh, yeah. They,
I think we have 11,000.
Yeah, I already think.
That's why I knew.
Covered them.
Oh, that's okay. That's why I'm saying, you guys. No, absolutely.
Jim, was there some change that we can go directly from fund balance appropriate?
Yes. Vern, was that a year ago?
Actually, I think it was a little bit longer ago than that, maybe. Yeah.
Explain it, could you explain the change?
There used to be, couldn't appropriate any funds from fund balance until you had shown that you've gotten all of your, I don't know, revenue
All your
years
revenues.
that you weren't.
At least build all.
Right, build all your revenues. And they changed that a few years ago to say that you can appropriate money from fund balance at any time, as long as you anticipate that you're gonna have a shortfall.
Is that because of the state takes so long?
It's, for whatever reason, the state changed it to make it,
It's more realistic.
yeah, to make it
Well,
more
yeah.
realistic.
Probably
And
most
actually,
counties
at the
have
same time
exhausted,
that
so
you
it became a
put,
moot question.
Well, how to feel a little bit.
I'm just saying because, I mean, the state takes a line and gets you your money. And they say that you can't get that. Either the people until they give you your money.
Any other,
Nobody
any other questions for the sheriff? Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Got one more, which is pretty simple.
It's just city constables, it's just $2,500, what that is a fee that we have to pay to justice courts when they transfer a case to county court. Basically paying them for doing work for county courts, $10, I think, every month.
It's been here forever, then, yeah.
It's not probably gonna be 2,500, it was what, last year.
1960.
But it's, a couple of thousand, if you wanted to take a chance and cut 500, but you never know. Especially if there's been activity lately, apparently a lot of activity in courts, it might be 2,500.
Yeah. Better not cut it.
Yeah.
We'll be coming back to this for.
We have a CSEA request.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a request from the CSCA for employees being terminated, possibly being terminated at the Country Manor and being terminated at
And can I ask to expand that, because I had an issue that I wanted to talk about that we touched on last week in this session about a time and attendance issue within one of our departments specific to employees. Can we expand the executive session for that?
As long as it fits under executive session.
I believe it does.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
you made it.
Oh, you did?
I did it all. Long for the seat.
All in favor?
Aye. Hammer.
Second.
Well, what can I do, John? if I
Well, one
ask
person
people-
should be talking at a time over here.
I agree. Well, what can I do if I ask people to please talk once the time and they
Get the gavel and rap the gavel, let the people shut their mouth until
People
one
don't
person's
listen to the
talking.
gavel, John, I get that.
I can get the gavel, I mean, I can do that.
People don't listen to the gavel.
Is this done?
Very non-professional.
Is the meeting adjourned?
Keep that out here.
Have you adjourned this meeting, Pat?